Okay. Thanks, Laura. Thanks for starting us out and for facilitating this conversation. And thanks to all of you for joining. I'm Erica Lautenbach, the Health Department Director, and I unfortunately will not be able to join you for the duration, but I am going to watch this afterward. And I'm really, really pleased that Tom Kunish from the Health Department, who I can see his screen right now, is joining us. Tom is so knowledgeable, so kind, such a great, both great human being, employee, partner, all of the above. I'm just really happy to work with him. And yes, Tom, I'm giving you lots of kudos that are well deserved. He's been working really, really hard and has worked really collaboratively with a lot of businesses that have been in the shoes of the situation we're going to talk about today, which is what do you do if you have an employee who's showing symptoms or who is a confirmed case. I know there's a lot of fear about this for employers. There's a lot of concern about stigma and about what this could look like for your business, both in terms of customer confidence and also in terms of what it will look like operationally. We've gotten a lot of calls from businesses, will I have to shut down? What will happen? And we want to start this conversation by just assuring you that we have a business response team of which Tom is part and leads at the health department that are prepared to work with any business that has a symptom, either a probable, a case, either a probable case or a confirmed case. And we can help walk you through what your responsibility is and what we will help you with. This has been a success thus far. We've been able to really work collaboratively with businesses, and we look forward to the conversation with you. And I just want to reassure you that, there's nothing we can predict with COVID. There's so much uncertainty, but what you can be sure of is that we have a team that will be there to help you and work through what may over time become an inevitable, which is employees in your workplace getting sick. So of course, we hope that that won't be the case, but if it is, know that we're here and we're here to work with you and to help. So thanks so much for all who joined. I'm going to go back to our testing site and do some more registration, but I just really appreciate your participation in this, and I hope this can be an opportunity for you to also learn and share with other businesses so the word can get out about how we all address this together as a community. So thanks very much for joining, and I look forward to hearing the conversation after the fact. Thank you.
Thanks, Erica. Gina.
Good morning. I am just so overwhelmed seeing all these people on this forum today. And my name is Gina Stone. I am the chair for Public Health Advisory Board. So I'm on the committee that helps make recommendations to the health board. And we are super lucky to have Rudd Brown today. He's our council member from District 1, and he's been with us for a long time. And I can tell you, the short time that I have worked with Rudd, he's been amazing champion for the good of our community. So Rudd, would you mind just saying a couple of words to all the people who are here today?
So thanks, Gina. For those who are not familiar, prior to joining the council, I built and operated a multinational business headquartered in Bellingham. And I remember back in 2007, through 2010, the crisis of running a business in in the last recession. And that was really tough. And this is very similar. And I just wanted to, first off, thank all of you for being members of the community who've stepped up and chosen to take a leadership position in what is a very difficult and uncertain time. And I think the key learnings that I found from the last recession and the crisis of being in a business then is there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty and fear within your employee base. This discussion is about dealing with your customers, but the method of dealing with your customers, of course, is through the interface of your employees. And the challenges that you're going to have with this are going to be not insignificant, but they are worthwhile. And I just wanted to thank all of you for stepping up and having the fortitude to have those difficult conversations with your customers, to support your employees when there's a conflict, and demonstrate to the other businesses in the community how to lead through this crisis. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm turning it over to Holly O'Neill now, who will carry us through the presentation and introduce the panelists. So take it over, Holly. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Holly O'Neill, and Laura and Marty Solomon, who's on the call today, and myself have been really holding the container for this process. And really, as Red had said, it really is because we're part of this amazing community of people who really want our community to succeed in staying healthy and being able to be sustainable in our economy. So thank you for being here and being part of that. I'm gonna go ahead and get us started with the PowerPoint, which is really just to get us oriented. Let's see. To our work here today. I also just want to start by saying that one of the things that I've been noticing is that I'm old enough to have lived through the AIDS crisis. And I remember when we made this shift from blaming people to doing universal precautions. And that's really, I think we're right at the cusp of making that change, which is that we don't start like looking at, you know, a business who's had a COVID positive test in their workplace as like, oh my gosh, this is a terrible thing, you're in trouble, to be like, yeah, this is how it goes now. People are sometimes going to get sick. It's going to happen. Let's all just keep on track and keep our businesses as safe as we can. So that's part of the shift we're making. And I really want to acknowledge the folks who are going to step forward today as our peer panelists, because we have to be, like Red just said, we have to be having these conversations. There's no other way to go. So today what we have is I'm going to give some background information, and then we're going to have Tom speak a little bit about what we should expect from the standpoint of the health department and guidance. And then the panelists will share, and then we'll open up the conversation to everybody. So we'll have about half an hour for us just to share, you know, do some questions and answers and to share our own tips and experiences. So part of this story is that back in May, the Public Health Advisory Board made a recommendation for a body called the COVID Employer Support Task Force, and the County Council approved this in their position as our health board. And this Employer Support Task Force, it was created to help our community's businesses and organizations share, innovate, and improve best practices for safety in the face of COVID-19 now and in the future. And that's really important, is that I think we're all, if we haven't already realized, this isn't going to be like a flash in the pan. This is going to be an ongoing situation. And so it's how do we respond effectively and nimbly to the fact that here we are, we're learning all the time, information is changing all the time, and we need to keep on top of it. We have 140 members of the task force divided into 18 sectors. So pretty much everybody who applied became part of the task force and has been amazing coming together to share information and help each other with the implementation challenges, and then spread the word with that. And one of the outcomes of the task force was the development of this campaign. So the need was for people to have consistent signage that would help them communicate with their employees and their customers and their clients that could be recognizable across the county. So there's signage that has been created There's a website now, and you can download the materials. You can ask for a printed copy, and we will send that to you for free. But really, we want to advance this campaign. We want to make this, all of us, I'm really saying all of us here on the call, we want to make this visible and normal across the county. This is how we operate. We are part of the large effort to work together to make our community safe. So this is like, I encourage all of you, if you haven't been already, to the website to start downloading stuff, share it, make sure that your colleagues know about it, because we really want to be consistent in our messaging here. When you go to the web page, the website, the Safer, Stronger Together, and again, it's WhatcomTogether.org, you can download all this stuff, but it also, you'll see this bright orange link, which will take you to the health department's website. So if you think of it as a link, it's the signage saying, here's what, we're a safe business. You can feel safe when you come here because we are following best practices, and you can find the information about best practices on the health department website, right? So there's a clear connection between the campaign and the guidance. And this is, this is today's flash. The health department has been amazing about just keeping this up to date all the time. And if you see things that you're like, that doesn't quite work, or that doesn't make sense, then, email them, let them know, because the whole idea here is that it's responsive to the needs of businesses and organizations, giving them the information that they want and making it as user-friendly as possible. And really trying, people are so overwhelmed. The biggest piece of feedback that we've been getting is that there's just so much information. So trying to really boil it down to what's most essential is part of the objective here. So this conversation, each of these forums, we're doing this series of forums, and each of these forums are based on what we're hearing are the most pressing and emergent questions and needs that our businesses and employers, other kinds of organizations are having. So last week was about masks, and you can find that on the WhatcomTogether.org website. We'll have that, the video there. And then the next thing that we've been hearing that people really need to understand is what happens if somebody's sick. And so I'm going to turn it over to Tom Kunish. And Tom is going to go through these 3 situations and make sure everybody has the same basic information about what you can expect. So Tom, are you ready? Are you ready to go?
I am. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for giving us your attention today. I have to open by saying I'm so happy today that the work crew out in front of my office is not literally jackhammering the sidewalk while we're trying to have this meeting. That was my yesterday. So my head was kind of rattling by the end of the day. I want to start just by giving an outline of what the business response team is. We are not so much the people that are answering general questions about COVID and how do I run my business. We're the folks that are working with businesses when COVID lands on your doorstep. So the whole purpose of the business response team is to be sort of the guides for business owners through the COVID process. I have somebody who's sick. I have somebody who's been a close contact of a COVID case. I have a positive case at my business. What do I do next? Everybody's situation is unique and different, and every assessment of risk and the actions that need to take place to manage that risk are different depending on the situation. So we created this team because there was a need out there. Businesses, business owners, when COVID lands on your doorstep, you're not expected to know how to respond to that. There's so much information, as Holly and Laura have already said out there. We want to help you navigate that information in a way that matters to your business. Our goals are threefold, and these are goals that are weighted equally. We want to protect the interests of the business. We want to prevent the spread of COVID among coworkers at your business, and we want to prevent the spread of COVID from to the entire community from potential contact with your business. When a business is affected, we're here to answer questions. We're here to help you navigate next steps. We're here to help you assess risk, assess the control measures that you've got in place, maybe suggest some additional control measures, help track employees through quarantine and isolation, and then hopefully turn you loose as soon as possible with, okay, we're done with quarantine and isolation. Now we can get back to sort of business as at least COVID usual. So in short, we're your tour guides. And I don't mean to be flip about that. We're the folks that are going to help you navigate from when COVID lands on your doorstep to when you're temporarily anyway clear of having to worry immediately about it, and provide you with 7-day-a-week contact with somebody that can help you navigate that process. So that's my elevator speech. It was a long elevator ride. With that, I'll turn it back over to Holly for, and then we can go into sort of the scenarios as needed moving forward.
Great. Thank you, Tom. So Tom, can you see the PowerPoint on your screen?
I can.
Great.
You want me to go over those three briefly?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
there's the whole, I'm going to just give you, hold on a second. So we've got, I think this whole set of things, right?
Yes, I can talk through those things.
Great. So you just tell me, I'll kind of keep us moving along. So everybody, Tom and I went through the guidance yesterday, and just to let you know how we created this is I just kept saying, well, what about this? And I don't understand that. So he got like, as somebody who doesn't know the terrain and really trying to understand what the situation is, you're going to see really almost like a Q&A, like me asking Tom a lot of questions. So we're going to go through 3 scenarios. The 3 scenarios being your employee has symptoms, your employee has had a close contact, and you have a positive case at your business. And Tom is brilliant at just sort of like making it what I think is a little bit complex, honestly, into some really clear points about how to think and understand how this all is going to play out. So we'll take each scenario one at a time. So first, your employee has symptoms.
Okay, so what are COVID symptoms? There are lots of resources out there that share with you what COVID symptoms are. If you've been following this, as how can you avoid it? You've seen that those symptoms have evolved. At first, it was fever. Fever was such an important symptom. So if you have fever and then some of these other respiratory problems like shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, then we're worried about COVID. Well, as we interview people, we learn that some people have mild symptoms, some people have no fever at all. Some people have nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, which was never originally associated with COVID. So we've had to evolve our response as the situation dictates. And as we learn a little bit more by working with people who have been sick, that's where the evolution of information, not just the symptom list, but all of the guidance has come in. In general, if you have somebody with symptoms, we want you to exclude them from work. We want you to say, hey, thanks for letting us know. Please stay home. We're going to catch more fish, so to speak, in that net than we really need to, because there are lots of things that are not COVID that cause these symptoms. But the idea is, hey, we're dealing with a pandemic. We're dealing with something that's so easily transmittable in certain circumstances that we want to be extra cautious. We don't want a symptomatic employee who slips through the webbing of the net, so to speak, to cause an outbreak in a business and then make the problem even bigger. We want to catch that potential COVID case as early as possible, remove them from circulation, and then hopefully that means that there's no further exposure and no further cases that we have to deal with at that business. This is our strategy for the entire community. Isolating and quarantining folks that are either symptomatic or are asymptomatic contacts allows us to stop the spread at that one person and hopefully not have next generation and generation after that cases. So this little diagram here, if you have somebody that's symptomatic, we want you to refer them to their healthcare provider. We want symptomatic people to get tested. So if the person has a healthcare provider, they can go to their provider. The provider can refer them to a lab for testing. If they don't have a provider, then we have a consult line at the health department where a nurse can get them referred for testing. So that number is 360-778-6128. That's the health department nurse consult line. So, but if they have a provider, send them to the provider. If the provider, if you follow to the right on your screen, if the provider thinks that the symptoms are not related to COVID, they're related to some other health condition or some other situation that this person is dealing with, and the healthcare provider says, hey, we're not worried about COVID here, then they can return to work as soon as they feel better. If the symptoms involve fever, they got to be fever-free for 3 days and other symptoms improving, or at least managed, okay? So then we're not really worried about COVID. But that broad net that we're casting for people who we can't say this is not COVID, we want to get them tested. Now, even if they test negative, we still want them to isolate until their symptoms have improved, until they're fever-free for at least 3 days and 10 days from onset. That's regardless of test result. And the reason for that is that when we test someone for COVID, the test is sensitive and able to pick up COVID disease for a certain amount of time after exposure. We may test somebody before they're going to convert to positive or be detectable. We may test somebody after they've already become, after they've cleared the virus enough so that the test is not going to result in a positive test. We still want to keep those people out of circulation as a precaution to prevent spread. I'm not going to get too much into the details of testing. That would be stepping out of my lane as a non-medical person. However, if somebody does test positive, or if we have contacts that are positive, there are things that business operators really need to know and be prepared to do. So some definitions to kind of frame our conversation. A confirmed case is somebody who's tested positive. Okay, pretty straightforward. A probable case is somebody who has close contact with the case and has COVID symptoms. So confirmed cases and probable cases are really treated exactly the same. And then a close contact with is a person who has been within 6 feet of a confirmed or probable case for at least 15 minutes during their communicable or contagious period. Now, all of this can make your head spin a little bit, and that's part of why we're here for you. So you don't have to memorize this. There won't be a test at the end. But if you have questions and you run into one of these situations, that's when you call us and we'll help you navigate. Can you back up to the last slide? So there's a couple of other terms that are batted around, sometimes interchangeably, but they're really different. Quarantine refers to somebody that's been exposed to COVID. So a person who's in quarantine is somebody who's exposed. If they're asymptomatic and they've been exposed to COVID, then we place them in quarantine. We ask them to stay home, stay away from other people, limit their potential contact with others in the community for 14 days. After 14 days, we don't consider them a risk of transmission anymore. If they haven't developed symptoms within that 14-day period, we don't really consider them a risk anymore. Isolation is for somebody who is a confirmed or probable case. So isolation is intended to prevent spread of disease for people who are symptomatic and who are either confirmed cases or close contacts of confirmed cases. And sorry, I misspoke. Confirmed cases or symptomatic close contacts of confirmed cases. In other words, probable cases. So isolation is about preventing spread once you're sick. Quarantine is about preventing possible spread in case you get sick. And the time frames are different, and the terms are unique and but easy to sort of interchange. So again, there won't be a test on this. If you need help navigating all of the terms and all of the details, that's why we're here for you. Okay, so as I said earlier, close contact, somebody who spends more than 15 minutes within 6 feet of somebody who's a confirmed or probable case. Okay, so confirmed or probable cases are always going to be symptomatic, and there's going to be a definite connection with somebody there that has lab confirmed COVID. Doesn't matter if it's inside or outside, and it doesn't really matter if both people are masked or not. Cloth face masks are nice, but they're not considered effective, 100% effective source control. So in other words, if I am a positive COVID case, and whether I'm symptomatic or not, and I'm wearing a face mask, that face mask is not 100% protected to those around me. And others might still be exposed. If I wear my mask like that, with my nose hanging out, then that's not a very effective. I'm masked, but not very effective, right? Or if I've got gaps, or if I'm wearing a bandana with the loose end at the bottom. So cloth face coverings are good, and they reduce the risk of spread, but they don't eliminate it altogether. Okay, so let's say you're affected. Somebody who works for your business is a close contact of a COVID case, okay? We're gonna reach out to you. Now, you may know before we know, because as with a lot of things, it takes a while for the lab to report the case to the health department, for the case investigators at the health department to do the interviews and determine who close contacts are. So you may know about this. Your employee may come to you and say, hey, I was exposed to somebody with COVID. You can call us before we call you. We may call you and say, hey, this employee was a close contact of a COVID case. We want you to exclude that person from work. We may ask you, if this person is a confirmed or probable case, we may ask you to assess your workplace. Who is in close contact with that confirmed or probable case? And then we'll work with those employees to get them tested, to get them into isolation and quarantine, and to communicate with everybody what their roles and responsibilities are to protect the community as a whole. Okay, so it's important to remember that when we share medical information with you about an employee, or when you share personal information about an employee with us, that all of that information is HIPAA protected. So the medical privacy laws apply. We're allowed to share with you because we have a responsibility to prevent the spread of disease in the community. And HIPAA has exemptions for sharing personal information in those circumstances. Vice versa, you have an obligation in state law to share information with us, with the understanding that it will only be used for the purpose of preventing the spread of illness, and it won't be shared any further than it absolutely must be. Okay? When we ask you for contacts, we'll ask you for names, birth dates, and phone numbers. We may ask you for some other information, but really to do our job, we need name, birthday, and phone number. Birthday is a sensitive topic, but it's required for us to access medical records. So if there are hospital records or lab records that we need access for this person, we need that birthday. If we have 6 John Smiths in the community, we need to know which John Smith we're talking about. So therefore, There are some common names out there that we need the birthday to be able to distinguish one person from another. So if folks are identified as confirmed cases, probable cases, or close contacts, we need to send them home. They need to go home and quarantine or isolate and wait for further instructions from the health department on how long that has to be. Sometimes that can be an impatient process. People want answers right now. We need you to understand, please, that we have many new cases every day, and you know the response isn't immediate. But you know, again, we're here to work with you and try and make that all happen as quickly as possible. So at least you know what you need to know for today. Moving on to or back to HIPAA, notifying coworkers, leads, supervisors. Sometimes that can be done as simply as saying, hey, so-and-so is out today. You don't even have to say out sick. You can just say they're unavailable for work. Well, how come? Oh, you know, they're out today. They contacted me. They let me know that they're not available for work and we're just gonna have to cover. Now, employees may put 2 and 2 together. Oh yeah, I heard so-and-so say that they were exposed to COVID. That's probably why they're out of work. They can do their own detective work. If the employee chooses to share that information with the coworkers, that's cool. They have the right to do that. It's their information. We just have to keep it protected as health department staff and as employers. We have to live within those boundaries that HIPAA sets for us. Okay, so if you call us, our business response team will be here to help you through the process. Again, we'll walk with you. We'll provide you with 7-day access to someone. So there's always somebody from the business response team available. We have an email that I don't know if we have in this presentation, but I'll say it. It's health.co.whatcom.us. And hopefully at some point we'll get that posted into the chat box when I'm not speaking. Okay, so like I said, initially our 3 goals: prevent spread of COVID, prevent in the community, in the workplace, and to help you continue to do business. We've had business owners that have said, oh gosh, we've got this COVID positive person, I don't know what to do, I'm just gonna close the business. Oftentimes that's not required. If we can get the individual isolated or quarantined, get them out of the workplace, assess possible exposure. Sometimes we find there's really no significant exposure because they haven't worked for the past 2 days. And if they haven't worked within 2 days prior to onset, there's really no exposure to coworkers. We'll help you work through all of that and answer all of those questions. Okay. So there are tips and tools and guidance documents available on the web, both at the state health department and at the county health department level. And I know navigating those things can be a little bit, well, it can make your head swim. Makes our head swim every day. Just trying to keep straight the evolving situation and the evolving guidance out there. But rest assured that if you have a question, even if we don't have the answer right away, we'll work with you to get the answers that you need and to help you keep doing business. So I'll stop there and turn it back over to Holly.
Great, thank you, Tom. That was excellent. So this slide is of a document that was just uploaded onto the site, the page on the health department website, that is resources for businesses and organizations. And this document, the tips and tools for implementing COVID-19 guidance, was really the product of a lot of conversations by the Employer Support Task Force. And I've highlighted here this one. You know, what we didn't go into today is information about like, how do you clean? What do you do after you've had a case in your workplace? So a lot of that guidance is in here, and this stuff can help you develop a plan for that. And then, as Tom said, the health department, the business response team is also there to help you with that. So I really recommend you go to this site and look at that. And now we're going to shift gears and we're going to move over. I want to thank Tom again for just helping lay that all out so clearly. And now we're going to hear from our peer panelists. So we have two folks here today to share. So we have Raquel Hansen from Samson Rope and Larry Brown from Ferndale Grocery Outlet. And I'm so pleased both of you could be here today. And we're going to take turns just hearing from each of them. So what was their experience? You know, what happened? What did they do? What did they learn? What have they changed? What are they doing now? And any tips that they might recommend to the rest of us. So I'm going to actually stop sharing the screen, and I'm going to turn over the facilitation to Laura to help both move the panelists through their paces and then open up the conversation with the rest of the group. So Raquel, are you ready?
Sure.
The floor is yours.
I'm ready.
Sweet, thank you. And folks, you may want to change, just a suggestion, if you're on gallery view, you might want to change over to speaker view so that you can just see Raquel. Go ahead.
Oh boy.
And you look terrific.
Be all in everybody's faces. Just let me know when you're ready, Laura.
So Raquel, yes, just jump in. What was the situation that happened at your facility, and what did you learn?
Yeah, so first I'll start by saying Tom, I believe, is an individual that I talked to fairly early on when we had our cases. I think we were probably one of the early employers in the county to experience this. Ours happened late March, early April. And we experienced here in Ferndale 4 cases within a 2-week time frame. And we kind of had a little bit of a cluster within a certain specific area of our manufacturing facility. And it was scary. We weren't, actually, I'll start off by saying our CEO had worked in Singapore when SARS was going on. And so he had kind of seen this coming. So he made myself and our COO come up with a plan of action that we were going to take if we got a positive case. And that he started that in January. So he was very proactive in that way, and took it much more seriously than we had even imagined. So we had a plan in place. And the minute we got our very first positive, we went to our plan immediately. And we said, okay, we had a response team. We came into our conference room and we said, what does our plan say? And our plan said, this person is a positive case. Who were they? We did the contact. We said, who could they possibly have been in close contact with that we're going to have to notify? Let's talk to the employee and ask them. And then we shut down actually for 4 days. We went very conservative route because we didn't know, right? And at that point, we were like, we didn't know how it got into the building. We didn't know how it had spread. We knew nothing. We weren't requiring masks all the time. So the potential exposure was probably pretty big. And so we shut down. We brought in a cleaning company to literally like sanitize as much, mostly common areas, as much as possible. We sanitized common touch points around all of our manufacturing equipment, which was a lot, primarily around where this person worked, but everywhere. We implemented what are our cleaning procedures going to be going forward. We implement, at that point, I don't know that we implemented the social distancing, and we implemented, if you come within 6 feet, you must put your mask on in the manufacturing facility. By that point, we'd already sent all of our remote workers home in the office. So I think there's maybe 4 of us that are ever in the office on a regular basis, when usually we have probably 30. And then before we brought people back in, we said, okay, what question, we did the health assessment, what questions are we gonna ask? Our supervisors were calling employees every day saying, how are you feeling? The ones that were in close contact, how are you feeling? We called the health department and said, we have an employee who tested positive, what should we do? And they were very helpful. And then as employees, we limited the number of employees that we would bring back in because we wanted to maintain as much social distancing as possible. So we had, at one point I had 58 people out from our manufacturing facility in Ferndale, when usually that was like a quarter or more like a third of my staff out. Either because we isolated them and said, you can't come back to work. They were afraid, so they started becoming, realizing that they were high risk. Or we couldn't bring them back because we picked very skilled employees. And again, we wanted to maintain that social distancing. And then we gradually started bringing people back in little by little as we put more preventive measures into place, and feeling more comfortable with, okay, we can control this. So it was really as much as we possibly can. So it really became more about what are all the preventative and restrictive measures that we need to have in place in order to keep our employees safe. And, but we literally had the first one, and then 4 days later, we got another one, and then 4 days later, another one, and then 4 days later, another one. And unfortunately, one of our employees who did get sick, her husband passed away from it as well. So that was very sad. And I did have an employee in my Louisiana facility who passed away from the virus. We've, So we haven't had anything since in Ferndale since the second week of April. Mm-hmm. Employees got very sick, the ones who did have it, really sick. And luckily they ended up okay. But we're also not complacent at all about how we manage it. Our supervisors get a little frustrated with, oh my God, an employee called in sick again, and they've got diarrhea or they're nauseous or whatever. But at the same time, they realize that we're taking all the necessary precautions that we need to take. And employees have been very diligent about calling in, and us being very diligent about saying, you're not going to get reprimanded. It's a little tougher in our Louisiana facility just because, their restrictions aren't nearly as tight as ours. But they pretty much follow the same requirements as, and we do the temperature monitoring now every day as people are coming in. We have a health assessment that they have to answer every day as they're coming in. Yeah, so not sure if I answered all the questions there.
You're doing great. Thank you so much.
But if anybody has any questions for me, let me know. If you're like, oh, well, what did they do about that? Just ask me. I'm more than happy to answer that.
I'm incredibly impressed that you had a plan in place before all of this.
Again, that is purely due to our CEO.
Yeah.
And we constantly, I was just looking at our plan and policy before this call, because we need to make some updates to it. Mm-hmm. It's a dynamic document that we're constantly having to update. And the other thing is Red talked about earlier in terms of people feeling scared and nervous about what's happening. We also do weekly updates with our employees and push them out to our employees through our HRIS system, or it's essentially our self-service portal for our employees. And we give them weekly updates about what's going on in the business and have we had any new cases. And once a new case comes out, we put a notification out to our employees, and we're very, we say, this is the facility, the location, we don't say who, of course, and what action have we taken. Yeah. That way people know that we're doing what we need to do. But the communications weekly are really important to people, so they feel like they're hearing what's going on. I encourage any business to do that either weekly or every other week on a regular basis, especially even how the business is doing, because people get scared.
feel like you've offered us an awful lot of information about how you handled the situation and what you did and the things that worked. Do you have any other specific tips that you would recommend to employers or?
I would just say the one thing we just experienced, because we hadn't had any cases for a while, we just had one pop up in our Louisiana, and we follow the same procedures in Louisiana that we do here, because ours are much more conservative and restrictive, and we want them to do the same thing. We had an employee whose son was getting tested. They did the rapid test in Louisiana. He tested negative, but the doctor then also, because of all the symptoms he was having, the doctor also did the longer test. Her manager told her to come into work anyway, even though, I mean, this is her son. She's around him all day long, right? When she's home. And what we realized is that because we hadn't had one in a while, we didn't go back to our plan. Right? We just went, oh, well, what should we do? And so it was one of the lessons there is don't get too complacent, because if you get one and you haven't had one for a while, you might think you have all the answers, but you got to remember to go back to your plan. And that's what our CEO came back and said, you guys are just having a conversation. You're not going back to the plan. He goes, 3 months ago, you would have been in the conference room saying, what's our plan? What do we do? And he's absolutely right. And that is something that you can get complacent again. And I would just say, don't do that.
Thank you.
And the other thing is employees notice that.
Right.
Say, hey, wait a minute, you said the policy is this, and you didn't do that.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Raquel. I'm going to move to Larry Brown, have him share stories, and then would love to hear questions from the folks that have joined the forum, the participants. So put them in the chat or raise your hand after Larry speaks, and we'll get some more questions going. Thanks.
Great. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, great.
Great. So first of all, Raquel made it really easy. She covered a lot of the bases instilled in her own school. And I want to say, Raquel, I'm so sorry about my sincere apologies.
Yeah, it was a tough time.
If you are with your staff as much as we are, you spend more time with your staff than your families.
Hey, Larry, we're having a little bit of trouble hearing you. So I'm wondering if maybe, can you do it without the...
I'll do that, right. So let me try that.
Yeah. The sound's kind of coming in and out.
They're pretty earrings, though.
Oh, yeah, you like that? Can you hear me better? You might get a view of my nose hairs if that's what you want. Okay, so hopefully you can hear me better now.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, so like Raquel and Samson, we were early on in our cases. We, at the early stages, not a lot. We had information that we didn't quite understand, as you can imagine. You guys all lived that as well. So we were following what the news and media was saying. You see guidelines and following those to that point. We felt very comfortable, and as things have grown and we get more information, we've gotten better and better at our game. So early on, it was right about Easter, before Easter. Probably the toughest week of my life. And then after that as well, because it was just all sort of like a big tidal wave of information and scared and business. We were, even retail, as far as retail grocery, you gotta remember, we were also busy, right? There was this crazy pandemic, and so it was gonna get shut down. So our business increased easily almost 100%. So you're staffed for a certain number, and all of a sudden you've got double the business, which is, in business, that's a good problem to have. But your staff becomes tired, you become complacent, and next thing you know, here we are. So one of our young men, and this is how easily it spreads. So one of our young men recently separated from one of our other staff members, and was living with his brother, and his brother's girlfriend at the time was connected to the retirement home, or the home that had the early cases. Well, she had come to the boyfriend, and then they hung out, and then eventually she got tested because she wasn't feeling well, and she tested COVID. Meantime, this young man comes to me and says, you know what, I'm not feeling very well. I don't normally get sick, but I need to go home. Yes, please go home. And then I said, but you need, to take some time off and by yourself. And it wasn't long after that I had heard that the brother's girlfriend had got tested and tested positive. I said, okay, now you need to get tested. Well, at that time we didn't have the test very good, so it was taking some time to get a reservation. Finally got in. Didn't hear from him, and then I had one of my young men come to me and say, my wife had actually had a really bad car accident, so I was gone that day. Come back that evening, and I got a text that says, hey, Larry, I'm not feeling very well, so I'm going to go get tested. Oh, great. I hope you'll be okay. I don't think you will. I was really optimistic. And he was more concerned because he had had a fever that day at work, and plus he has diabetes. And the next day, on Saturday, he had a quick turnaround. I think that's when we had the quick 24-hour turnaround early on in this. And he had texted me that afternoon on Saturday, and I had been here all morning, all day, ready to go home. And he's Larry, I just wanted to know I tested positive. Okay, great. Immediate action kicked in. Grocery Outlet's been very good about having a response team. We have a safety coordinator for 350 different stores. On top of that, we also have our legal team. And I shared the information with them, and within a short time, I shared with our lead, CB, and he said, well, let me get right back to you after all the information you gave me as far as the timeline. And then the young man that I was still waiting to hear from, I reached out to him via text, said, what are your results? I don't know, but let me try to reach the health department. The health department responded back within about 30 minutes because there was still a lot of information. So all of a sudden we had two right at the same time. Fortunately, we were able to respond. So at that time, Mr. CB said, okay, my recommendation, let's shut down. This is 5 o'clock on 4 o'clock on a Saturday, first of the month. And we called a cleaning crew that came out of Seattle, shut down. The cleaning crew was here by, actually heard from them within 30 minutes. They set up a team. They were here by, I think, 9 o'clock that night. They spent about 3 hours cleaning all the touch surfaces, high touch surfaces, display cases, the doors, bailers, registers, anything that customers would touch and or the person that had been there. And mind you, these guys hadn't been there for, one gentleman had been there for 24, the other one hadn't been there for 4 days. So we took the necessary precautions that are clean, and we were able to reopen the next morning at 8 o'clock. However, I just want to make a point that from that point of view, because we are, like Sampson wrote, we feel like this is our community, it's our family, and we felt obligated to share that with the community. Didn't want to hide behind the curtain. And so right after we opened on Sunday at 8 o'clock in the morning, we had a response on Facebook at 9 o'clock in the morning and shared that we had a couple cases. And I feel like that was a good response. I felt like that was a good thing for our community to know that we care enough about them that we're not going to hide anything from them, that we're not hiding behind, hey, we're closing our doors. Now that worked out really well for us, but it came from the heart, honestly. We didn't share any other details than what it was. You're welcome to go back and we would probably do that again, to be honest with you. And I do share with Raquel that there's a high probability it's going to happen again. Whether you let your guard down or not, you got your guard up. I feel like it's still going to happen. And what we've done and learned from this process, and I'm going to revert back real quick, so I don't want to take a lot of you guys' time, that the young woman that was dating the boy that tested positive, they're supposed to be isolated, right? Well, let's just say they didn't. And about 2 weeks later, not even 2 weeks, about 10 days later, she commented that, hey, I don't have any taste buds or taste like this. Immediately be like, okay, great, you gotta stay home. And in the meantime, people did leave as far as staff members, and for the right reasons. We explained to them for self-quarantine and that were around them, and they did. Some didn't come back, and some did come back. That was their choice, and we honored that. All of the people that had the cases were paid by federal law, and we were honoring that, and that was the right thing. Some were surprised that they were getting paid to be off, and so it was a nice reward for them. Again, it was the right thing to do. But I do reiterate, it will happen again. The things that we've done better at is we continue to follow Whatcom County rules with the state governor. And we make it, we follow that to the T. It's hard when you're in the front lines, right? You consider frontline workers, and everybody has an opinion about this, but we know in order to get through this, we have to do this. So we do a lot of education and signage or support. We spend money out of our pocket to whether it's masks or extra chemical. I mean, these are things that chemical being like those bleach water or non-rinse chemicals, just things that are good to use or food services or else. They're all approved. And so we do have a cleaning schedule, more rigorous than we did before. I didn't feel like we were doing enough before, and to where as much as you have wonderful staff members, they're only as good as the information you give them. And so, like Sam said, we do a weekly meeting with our reporting staff, and we share with them the concerns and expectations that we need to continue to not only in the store do the cleaning on an hourly basis. We do have a buzzer in the back room with a cleaning list and a sign list that when you hear it, you're the go-to person. No matter what, if you're the first one to hear it, you go for it. And so, and leadership follows that rule, as well as the front end of the registers. We do monitor the masks in the store with education, and we've had some pushback, but for the most part, it's been positive. And we will continue to do that. The staff appreciates the information, but part of the information is not so much what we're doing in the store, it's what they do on the outside of the store. By all means, you can't tell them you can't go do this or do that. But we can continue to monitor them, and not monitor them, but explain to them that your actions on the outside could happen on the inside. So please make good choices. And my staff, I have like 40 plus staff members. And so I have a lot of younger generation, so that's why I feel like it's more important for that younger generation to understand that they may feel it's okay to go out and hang out with a bunch of friends, play an Xbox, or watch a movie together. But if you do that, do it 6 feet apart. Do it reasonably. Fortunately, we have a virtual reality situation. You can do it from each other's homes, still have that connection, but you can't stop it, unfortunately. But if they do bring in the store, what it does to impact not just business, but to each other, it could be harmful, hurt, it could bother someone's grandmother. So we will continue to do that. We take all your resources that you give us. I actually literally have your signs hanging on my door outside on top of what Grocery Outlet has sent. I'm a proponent for supporting what you guys have created. I love the four steppers that you guys have created on top of what I already spent money on to do. And so having those resources for other businesses that aren't as profitable, have the funds to do that and have that at their disposal is critical. So thank you for whoever's doing the funding for that. And but you're right. I think you made a point earlier. We need to continue to educate and get more people to know about this package. It is valuable, not just monetarily, but as you guys have already spent the time on to help it better. So that's what I have. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. I know I don't want to repeat what Kel said, but it's a lot of the same stuff.
Thank you so much, Larry. The things that I'm highlighting from what you've said is communicating with staff, being open, being transparent, coming from the heart, like all of that seems, along with all the cleaning and all the following the protocol, all that good stuff, but that real human connection seems strong and great leadership in terms of what you're doing. Thank
Absolutely.
you. I'd like to open it up to questions for Raquel and Larry, and or if other folks on the call have had situations that they want to share, best practices, tips. This really is an open forum for community, so just give a little space.
Hey everyone, this is Anya Milton calling from Ferndale Chamber of Commerce, and listening to both of our chamber members speak today. First of all, I'm so proud of these businesses that have stepped up to share their expertise and their experiences with all of us today. I'm wondering if there is a greater action that can be put together. I've been on the website, the health department's website, and the page where it has the BRT information for the business response team. And there's a great page of FAQs. I'm also wondering if there's a way that can put together a basic plan. Like Raquel mentioned that they had a plan ready to go in January. And I'm wondering if there's something that can be boiled down to the most basic information for just any business to step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it needs to be. And obviously call in the BRT when you need to, but so that people have a general idea in advance what they need to do, like call your team together. I think that that would be a hugely beneficial opportunity for our community.
Thanks, Anya. Raquel, I see you have your mute off. Do you want to offer anything from
Oh,
that?
no, I just turned it off in case anybody
Okay.
had a question.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll make the direct ask. Do any of you have internal processes that you are following that you would be willing to share with us to create some type of that document that Anya's recommended that could be, you know, across organizations? Any tips and tricks would be super to share. We're open to receiving those.
I could certainly take our document and kind of put it into a simple template that people could use if they wanted to. They can put stuff in, take stuff out. So I'd be happy to share that.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Raquel.
Mm-hmm.
Other reflections, questions, experiences, fears?
I have a question, I guess.
Great.
This is John Jenkins. This isn't really directly related to having a case occur at the place of business. It's more a general thing, I guess, which is that one of the things I've found is that when people find out that I'm on I'm in this group, there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt out there, and everybody wants to know, oh, what do you know? What's the real truth? What is it about masks, or what this or that? I get all these questions, and I think what might be a useful session to have, I would certainly find it really useful at some point in the future, would just be a general Q&A session with the health department to give us some of the information and get some of the questions answered that we're getting from people all the time. An example of one that I get quite often is, that which came up in this session today, is the issue about wearing masks and social distancing, and that even if you're wearing masks, if you're within 6 feet of someone who was positive, then you're potentially a case. And the question that I get is that theory, or is contact tracing actually showing that people that are wearing masks are getting the disease? So is it theory or is it reality? And those are the kind of questions I get, these kind of nuanced things that I don't really have the answers to, but I do have the opportunity to influence a lot of people because I get those questions from people all the time. So,
Tom.
So thanks, John. The answer to that is not as cut and dry, not as black and white as you want it to be. However, the science, as if you read in the chat box, as Kim indicated, is that masks are effective at reducing transmission. But all we can say for sure is that masks reduce the risk of transmission. They're effective at that. But we can't yet say, we don't have enough information to say that masks are going to be effective at preventing all transmission. I don't know that we're ever really going to get there because, as I said, and as you probably observed, use of masks, even when they're in place, varies. There's the classic, mask hanging down below the nose, and that's the best example I can think of. But all the masks are different. The ways people wear them are different. The materials that are used are different. And so it's going to be impossible to say that a mask is 100% protective. What we can say is that it's going to definitely reduce your risk of getting sick if you're in contact with somebody who's COVID positive.
Yeah, I guess the question that people are asking me is that's theory, but are we actually seeing from the contact tracing cases where people are getting the disease when they're wearing a mask and they're social distancing? Are there times when people actually do get sick? And I know that contact distancing isn't a precise art. I mean, contact tracing is not a precise art. And I'm sure that people probably lie when you ask them, did you wear a mask? They'll say, oh yeah, sure, I was wearing a mask. So you don't really know, but that's the kind of question I get anyway.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't have a direct answer to that question. I wish I did. Would make us all feel better. Going to sound like a counselor here, but there are some things that we're just not going to be able to know, and we're going to have to do our best to ride out this rough ride.
Gina.
So this isn't any formal analysis, but I've been looking at the trends, different graphs from Whatcom County and, from the Washington State. What I have seen as a trend, and it would be an interesting actual study to be done, Tom, if we had actually enough personnel to do that at the health department. But what I see is, we saw the initial curve, and then when the down curve happened, when the governor ordered us to all be sequestered, nobody got out. So then that definitely the date coincided with the downslope of the first wave. And then we were going down until we hit May, when the Memorial Day weekend hit, and then and then the curve started going back up. And then now if you look at the second curve that we're actually experiencing, we are on a downtrend, believe it or not. And the downtrend again happened when the governor put out the mandate that we all wear a mask. So I also know, reading different articles, that not all masks are the same. Like Tom said, if you're just wearing a mask, that's not going to guarantee you anything. There's N95s that you wear if you're, a healthcare professional, and you wear a surgical mask if you are, in healthcare, but not in a huge exposure area. And, they say just wear any kind of a mask. And then there's another study that came out, if you're just wearing like a scarf, that's not as good. There's all kinds of study out there. And the fact is, they're not all going to be same protective level. However, our goal isn't, the thing that I'm thinking right now is, perfection is the enemy of good. So anything that we can put in place as layers to protect us and those that we love, our friends and our family, is better than trying to get perfection. It's not to say if I can't protect somebody from getting it 100%, then I'm not going to bother. Then you're letting a lot of bad things to happen, right? So anything you can do to layer protections, wear a mask, whatever mask you have available, distance as much as you can, be outside as much as you can, all of those things put in layers will protect the population. So it's just not one thing. We have to pull all of our knowledge, what we have, in order to address this question. And so mask alone, it's not going to be 100%, but if we all do it, it's going to make a difference. In order for our economy to be restarted and to go back, we have to wear a mask. It doesn't matter. We just have to wear a mask, and we have to put those layers in.
Thank you, Gina. I just want to honor, John, your original question or comment was, could we have a panel with open Q&A for the health department for lots of different questions? So we'll take that and add that to the opportunity. I think this is a really robust discussion, and it's great to have the expertise of the health department and Dr. Gina Stone to kind of inform us of some of these nuances about the science and the background that we don't necessarily know and that you're sharing with the community. So thanks. Are there any other questions, comments about businesses and employees or staff members might have symptoms or testing positive? So we've got one in the chat room. Someone has symptoms. Thomas is.
Yeah, how about if I read this out loud? If someone has symptoms, what I heard from Tom is to exclude them from work and encourage them to go to their healthcare provider or call the health department nurse consult phone number to get a recommendation on whether that person should get tested or not. So let's say someone has diarrhea and they're excluded from work and encouraged to make contact with their healthcare provider. Let's say the next day, am I allowed to ask that staff, did you make contact with a healthcare provider? And what did they say? What if they say, you know, I didn't, but the diarrhea resolved on its own, and I think it was just what I ate? How do I handle that person? What a great question. Tom, do you want to respond to that? Or I think we also have Kim on the call, Kim, are you on the call? Because that might be a good one for you. Kim's one of our health department nurses.
I am on the call. Can you hear me?
Yeah, why don't you take this?
Yeah, well, this is a really good question. It's very difficult, and it's one that we're trying to get some clarification from the Department of Health as well as the CDC, because, you know, as you know, that list of COVID symptoms is quite, could be lots of things. So right now, yeah, we want people to go to their doctors. We want to encourage them to get testing, but ideally, yeah, everybody would see their provider and then maybe get that return to work, but that puts a big burden on our healthcare system as well. So and maybe that's where Chena can weigh in too, especially if you've had some participation in the Healthcare Coalition work. So ideally, yeah, call your doctor, get tested, call our nurse health line if you need some assistance in getting tested. But then there's even a question of the negative. You know, we have a lot of cases right now. We have community spread. So the ultimate conservative angle is if there's a symptom on a list and we're suspecting COVID, then you isolate for 10 days. And there's a question right now of what to do if that test is negative. Is it ruling out COVID? And the CDC says, well, a negative test doesn't rule it out. So the guidance isn't totally clear on this. I would point to talking to healthcare providers. Unless this turns out to put too big of a burden on our healthcare providers, then we'll continue to look for guidance on how to make these decisions based on what's happening in the community.
So I think the question thank you, Kim, that was great. I think the question that's interesting here to dig a little deeper in, as I'm understanding, Mary, is your employee has said, my diarrhea is better now. I didn't call my doctor because I feel great. Or, you know, you could easily imagine somebody who has a hangover and they're feeling really bad one day and the next day they're feeling okay. And they didn't call their healthcare provider because their self-assessment is that it's over, it's good, we're good. Do you still insist as their employer that they really need to call their provider? I think that's the kind of I'm curious if what Raquel or Larry would say to that. Actually, what would you, given that you've seen the dark side, how would you answer that question?
Well, that is, it's interesting because that is a very common occurrence, which I'm sure is probably why the question comes up.
Yeah.
And we try to exercise some common sense too, right? Like I have my HR manager in Lafayette asked me today. She said, our production manager there, he has really bad allergies. I have really bad allergies, right? And it turns into a little bit of congestion and cough, right? And so he said, I don't feel sick. I don't have a fever. My allergies are bugging me. I'm taking my allergy pills. Do we keep him out of work forever because of this, right? Or do we get him tested? And they call their doctor. But he said, I don't want to have to call my doctor every time I end up getting a cough because of my allergies. So we try to exercise some common sense, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. And just, again, yeah, we just try to exercise some common sense. We have some employees who get migraines, and they say, I had a really bad headache last night, took my migraine medicine, I feel better today. Mm-hmm. We ask a lot of questions, right? But it's hard because we don't want to play doctor, right? We don't want to play nurse, we don't want to play doctor. So like I said, we try to exercise some common sense. We also have the legal aspect side where, we hear from SHRM, which is the national HR organization, that says, be very careful about excluding people from work if you aren't too sure. And if you are, then you better pay them, right? So I think it requires a level of common sense. I think it also requires a level of caution at the same time. I don't think there's any right answer. Most of our employees have been more than willing to call their doctor. They do a teledoc call, or call the nurse at the health department too. But I don't think there's anything wrong right now, especially now from an employer perspective and a legal perspective, of saying to an employee, look, you know what, given your symptoms, we would at least like to know that you've contacted your doctor and what advice they've given you. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'd also like to add that I posted the updated guidance from the Department of Health in the chat box. They revised the business and visitor screening guide on July 9th. And they still have the language in there, symptoms that are not attributed to another condition. So, right, you know, if this is like, yeah, this is my usual allergy symptoms. Yes, this is my usual headache symptoms. These are my usual asthma symptoms. It's when it's different, it's new, it's unusual. I mean, I spoke with a case the other day who has a GI condition and went to the ER with, you know, this is not my usual symptoms. And the doctor were like, oh no, I'm sure, you know, I'm sure that's your usual situation. So that's what I mean. Sometimes it's difficult, but I think that would be a good line, is that you can attribute to another condition. Is it different or new?
And so it sounds to me, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It sounds to me like it's not overstepping to ask the individual, did you reach out to the doctor and what did they say? Which was one of my concerns, that's none of my business. And then essentially having to trust what the staff says at their word, like not requesting proof of return to work from a healthcare provider, but I'm just to trust what they say about that.
Yeah, I'd be careful requesting proof from a healthcare provider. There's still other laws. I mean, I don't want to get into all the leave laws and things like that here that play into this whole big picture. But there's nothing wrong with saying what Kim just said. There's also nothing wrong with saying, is this normal for you? You know, is this related to some other underlying health condition that you might be having? You don't want to get into too many details, of course, right? But it's okay to ask some of those questions.
Yeah. Larry, did you want to chime in on this one?
I'm, you know, I lean heavily on legal a lot, and so I do call our attorney, and he counsel on that. So I agree that ask the good questions, and whether or not go get the information from the right source. And this is obviously we've been all put our heads together and thinking and so it's like one. I think having a great question by I think it's Mary for that. What we all think, but again, just sort of seeing the line. You work with your staff enough, you kind of know family. I know my son's got a ear infection or when he's got a tonsillitis, in a sense. I don't have to be to see a doctor about that, but I probably do. But I'm with Raquel. Just ask good questions on that. And if you do give them time off, be courteous and pay them if that's necessary. And just follow that lead of the CDC. That's what I can say, Laura. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Barbara Jenks put a comment in the chat box as well. And to that point, which is when you look at the guidance, especially the one that is coming from the health department, if you are seeing things that you are finding to not be clear enough, let us know. Email the health department back and say, I don't understand this, or this isn't making sense, or could you clarify, because that's how we're going to make this guidance really meet people's needs. So I really encourage you to look at those things carefully. I found for myself that I had scanned things without actually like really thinking critically about it. And it was helpful to do that. Again, this is like the classic cancer prevention. It's like you want to do that before you're sitting in the situation of needing to respond. So I do recommend you look at that and give it your critical eye. And I think we have maybe time for one more question or comment. Do people have anything else?
I think we're ready to wrap. Holly, do you want to pull up the last slide and share what we're doing next week?
Yeah, I sure will. So as I do, actually, before I do that, I just want to respond to John Jenkins' comment, which is it really does help for all of you. I've said this before, but as issues are emerging, as questions are emerging, if you can email us at the Employer Support Task Force email link, it really helps because that informs what the next conversation is. So this, just like at any point that you're like, we should have a conversation about whatever, please do speak up because that's helpful. And the next one we're going to have is, I'm going to just share my screen again, and we're dialing in our communications, like our website and our Facebook posting, all of that stuff. But this is, sorry, you're going to just see my whole screen for a minute here. But the next week's forum is how do we support employees during the stress? This has been something that's really been coming up a lot. And I think we're going to see more of this as time goes on. So how are we helping people cope with stress? Adrienne Renz, who was one of our peer panelists on our last call, told me yesterday that she's working with all of her managers right now on how to just really lean in to paying attention to staff in ways they have never done before. And so I think we're going to have some great speakers on this. Sterling Chick, who's on the call today, is going to be one of our speakers. But this is going to be really important for us to be able to for the long haul of this pandemic. So for right now, we're going to stick with the Fridays. And then I think we're probably going to shift to having these rotate on a Thursday schedule at the feedback from the Chambers of Commerce folks, that Thursday, kind of middle of the week is a little easier because of the holidays. We do get some holidays sometimes. So I hope everybody will join us on that. And then you spread the word to other businesses and organizations in your circles so they can come. This will also be up on the web, the WhatcomTogether.org website, so that you can listen to this again and see the PowerPoint, and from the last one we had on masks. And so unless there's anything else, I just really want to thank you all for being part of this and for just really being part of working together as a community so that we can keep each other safe. And people always get lost in the all of the information, but it's really very simple if you think about it. And that is what we need to communicate. Just be safe, do the smart thing, use your common sense, and stick together. So thank you all. It's been great. It's been great having you.
Thank you.